Who understands the back-end structure on this thing?
Ethan built it.
Get him. I need this fixed. Now.
Of course.
If this system failure causes loss, you understand who takes responsibility.
I'm aware I built redundancy into the system.
Did you?
Yes.
The day Ethan Cole was publicly humiliated in front of the entire executive board, he didn't defend himself. He didn't argue. He didn't even blink. He just leaned back in his chair and memorized who was laughing. 3 years later, those same people would sit across from him in a conference room and realize something terrifying. They had never been laughing at a weak man. They had been laughing at the most patient one in the building. Before we get into this interesting story, please subscribe, like, comment, share this video, and turn on your notification bell so that when more stories is posted, you will be the first to know. So let's get into the story. Hudson and Burke Capital, 48th floor executive boardroom. The skyline shimmered behind floor-to-ceiling glass walls. Inside, tension. Ethan stood beside a screen displaying acquisition projections. Derrick Lawson, the senior managing director, paced slowly in front of the table. "Ethan," Derrick said loudly, adjusting his cufflinks, "explain to the board why your models suggest we delay the South Chicago redevelopment." A few executives exchanged amused glances. Ethan remained composed, and he said, "The projected liquidity impact is understated," he said evenly. "If we move forward, we risk a 12-month capital strain." Derrick laughed lightly. "A 12-month strain? That's dramatic." He turned to the board. "This is what happens when analysts read too much and don't understand real-world leverage." Soft laughter around the table. Ethan didn't move. Derrick stepped closer and said, "You're good with spreadsheets, Ethan, but you're not built for executive decisions." Ethan finally looked directly at him. "The international derivatives exposure is misreported." The room shifted. Derrick's smile tightened. "Are you implying my department miscalculated?" Ethan replied calmly, "I'm stating the numbers." Then Derrick leaned in slightly. "You're overstepping." Ethan held his gaze. "No, I'm preventing risk." For a split second, something flickered in Derrick's expression. Not anger, concern, but it vanished quickly. "Noted," Derrick said coolly. "We'll proceed." The meeting adjourned, and as executives filed out, a quiet hierarchy solidified. They thought Derrick had won, but Ethan had learned something far more valuable. Derrick wasn't just arrogant, he was careless. But what no one knew was that Hudson and Burke Capital was moving money through offshore accounts to secure land through shell companies. Publicly, it was urban redevelopment. Privately, it was forced displacement, including the South Chicago block where Ethan's mother still lived. But Ethan knew. He had seen the routing patterns months ago. Every disguised transfer, every signature. But he never confronted anyone, because confrontation is emotional, documentation is strategic. 2 weeks later, Hudson and Burke's transaction servers crashed. Panic across the trading floor. Phones rang across the floor. Executives panicked. And for the first time, Derrick stormed out of his office. "Who understands the back-end structure on this thing?" Silence. Someone muttered, "Ethan built it." Derrick exhaled sharply. "Get him." Derrick stood over Ethan's desk. "I need this fixed, now." Ethan looked up slowly. "Of course." He followed Derrick into the server room. "If this system failure causes loss, you understand who takes responsibility." Ethan met his eyes. "I'm aware. I built redundancy into the system." "Did you?" Derrick said skeptically. "Yes," Ethan answered. Derrick stepped closer. "You enjoy correcting me, don't you?" Ethan's voice stayed steady. "I enjoy accuracy." Derrick's jaw flexed. "You're smart, but don't mistake intelligence for influence." Ethan turned slowly. And don't mistake influence for control. While restoring the system, Ethan did something else. He installed a silent trigger, encrypted documentation. If his credentials were ever revoked, or if he was terminated under suspicious grounds, every questionable transaction would auto-release to 3 investigative journalists and a federal regulator. 3 weeks later, Ethan overheard something through Derrick's partially closed office door. If the investigation picks up, Derrick said on speakerphone, Ethan becomes the fall guy. He's junior enough. Ethan didn't react. He walked back to his desk, opened a private file, and initiated Phase 2. The headline dropped at 6:08 a.m. Hudson Burke Capital under federal investigation for fraud and illegal land acquisition. By 8 a.m., news vans lined the street. By 10 a.m., trading was suspended. By noon, federal agents entered the building. Executives scrambled. Phones rang endlessly. The CEO, Margaret Holloway, scanned the room. "We have a leak." Derrick spoke quickly. "It's Ethan. He's been asking questions." Ethan sat quietly at the far end. Margaret turned to him. "Ethan, did you disclose internal information?" He folded his hands calmly. "No." "Then how do journalists have access to internal transaction logs?" Ethan tilted his head slightly. Maybe because internal controls were poorly designed. Months earlier, he had filed internal warnings. It was time-stamped, ignored, and archived. When Derrick's department attempted to quietly revoke Ethan's system privileges days before the investigation, the trigger activated. Encrypted evidence released automatically. Transaction trails, email threads, approval signatures, everything. Not from Ethan directly, from the system itself. Derrick thought he was sacrificing a pawn. He had triggered a checkmate. Derrick was escorted out of the building by federal agents. Margaret Holloway, the CEO, resigned by sunset. Stock value collapsed within 48 hours. But something unexpected happened. A second article published. It portrayed Ethan not as a conspirator, but as the analyst who attempted to warn leadership months prior. Public perception shifted instantly. Ethan wasn't a suspect. He was protected. Legally, strategically, impeccably. In a quiet cafe later that week, Olivia sat across from Ethan. "You triggered it, didn't you?" He stirred his coffee. "I designed protection. When they tried to revoke my access last week, the trigger activated." She exhaled slowly. "So this whole time, I knew they'd try to sacrifice someone. Why stay?" He looked at her. "Because if I left early, they'd replace me and continue. I needed them dependent." Olivia leaned back. "That's terrifying. Only if you were planning to betray me." Silence. Then she smiled faintly. "Good thing I wasn't." Months later, the firm collapsed. Executives resigned. Margaret approached Ethan privately. "You could take my seat," she said. "Help rebuild this the right way." Ethan considered it, then shook his head. "I don't want power inside a broken structure." "Then what do you want?" He stood. "Freedom." 1 year later, Chicago. A smaller investment firm. Transparent policies. Community-first development. Ethan stands in front of a group of young analysts. A student raises his hand. "Sir, how do you survive in a corrupt system?" Ethan pauses. "You don't survive it," he says calmly. "You outgrow it, quietly." He looks out the window at the skyline. Not angry, not triumphant, just steady. Because the truth is, the quietest person in the room is often the one who already knows how it ends. If you like this video and want to see more of this, subscribe, like, comment, share this video, and turn on your notification bell so that when more stories is posted, you will be the first to know. Thank you.